So the language here is a bit poetic. Um, so that first sentence, they're saying, let us, that is, um, sort of setting up uh, the situation, then suppose. So they're kind of saying, everyone who's here, that is the reader and the writer, supposing something, that is, putting it forward as an idea. And then what they're putting forward is that the mind is a white paper.
Oh,
So supposing the mind to be a white paper or to be white paper that is empty.
yeah.
Um, so it's quite a complex chain um, of verbs there. Let us then suppose, um, and then after that we've got the mind to be a white paper. So where we are imagining something is something else. And so to be void of all characters, that is to be empty. So void in this case is another word for empty ideas. It's being used as it's being used as an adjective, void of all characters. Um, that is, the mind is being supposed to be void, or the paper is void. Um, but usually void is a noun. We say that something is, we say that there is a void or a absence.
What kind of characters we are talking about here?
Because they're referring to paper, I think they mean written characters.
Mm,
So the whole sentence is establishing this idea that the mind is like a blank piece of paper,
mm,
which would be the more everyday way of saying this. So I think they mean written characters
mm,
without
mm.
any ideas means empty of the writing thoughts.
I mean,
It's just a very literary way of writing.
mm,
It feels old-fashioned, and it feels a bit obscure. Uh, but it all it's really saying is we have to imagine that one thing can be used as a metaphor for the other. That is, an
mm,
empty piece of paper can be a metaphor for the mind, um, which is already quite an abstract thing. So then they've got follow-up questions about that. How comes it to be furnished? That is, how how does that blank sheet of paper or that empty mind come to have things on it or in it? Um, and then whence comes it by that vast store? That is, where do these things come from? Yeah, so they're mixing metaphors. They're going
mm,
back and forth. They're imagining that it's empty like a piece of paper, but also that it's empty like a chamber or a room.
mm,
Um, how does it end up being furnished? Um, and we see that very old-fashioned ordering of words. How comes it to be furnished?
mm,
Rather than how is it furnished or how
mm,
does it get furnished? Yeah. So whence is another really old-fashioned word. I think the best way to think about it is from where or from what source
mm,
or
yeah. Mm,
origin.
mm,
So where does something come from? Where 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 does where do these ideas come from,
mm,
basically? And when they're talking about the fancy of man, they're talking about the imagination.
mm,
So fancy is another old-fashioned word for imagination or visualizing in the mind, we might say. Um, so when they say, whence comes it by that vast store which the busy and boundless fancy of man has painted on it? So they're saying where do all of the images and ideas that we hold in our minds come from, that we imagine come from? And again, has painted on it. There's a bit of a slip back to the metaphor of the empty paper. We're imagining a place where you could paint rather than a room that's being furnished. And then obviously they're talking about almost endless variety. They're saying that somehow we can imagine all of these different things, almost endless different things.
Yeah. And this one,
Sentence before, which gives an answer to the first questions. To this I answer in one word from experience. In that, all our knowledge is founded. So that is experience. Saying all knowledge is based on experience. And from that is from experience, it ultimately derives itself. So the word that is in both cases, yeah, it's a referential word back to experience, which is this person's answer to the question of where ideas come from. They come from experience.
so yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's another way of saying it's based on or built on experience. So it's in that all our knowledge is founded. You might say that it's if we think of the metaphor of a foundation of a building, so what is the basic layer of the mind? It's experience.
Experience, yeah. First we need the experience as a mortar. Yeah, and then we go up. Perfect, amazing. Yeah, let's go.